Welcome back to the Workplace Wanderer Lessons from the Experts, where I get to be the dummy here and get to learn from all types of amazing guests, learn from their experiences, learn from their education, and learn from their perspectives of how we can help start to make some changes in the workplace to make the workplace more comfortable, more conducive, more productive, how we can make people more happy at the workplace. And I've been blessed to be on this journey and to have these conversations. And I got to give a shout out to my business partner, Amanda Marino, for coming up with the idea of hosting this LinkedIn Live series. As soon as she said it, I was like, I got it already. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm naming it. I know what exactly how I want to ask questions and what types of guests I want to have on. So this has been an awesome journey for me, and welcome back for anybody listening on LinkedIn Live, anybody listening on podcasts, watching on YouTube. We are a multi-streaming platform now. So I have an awesome guest today, somebody whose face and head I've become very familiar with because how he signs everything on LinkedIn is a picture of his face. And is the best branding I have seen because I already know what you look like. I'm already comfortable with your smiling face. And it's somebody actually outside of that I have a lot of respect for. I think funny enough, I think this is our first or second real conversation ever, but we've always gone back and forth. We're like fanboys of each other on all the socials. So I'm actually excited. You're not the first one I'm having a conversation with for the first time on here after going back and forth for some time. And this is a fun way to get to know each other.
Yeah.
Is that this is the types of conversations I wish I could have in real life, where I can just sit down and ask you a bunch of questions with somebody new. So I want to welcome Brian Wall, who will be talking today about the loyalty fallacy. Welcome, Brian.
Yeah, man. Good to see you, brother. Finally, right? Huge fan of Amanda's. She was my first big celebrity, so to speak, contact on LinkedIn. She kind of got me started. She was a super big encouragement to me early on and got me connected to all the people that I needed to be connected to as we moved down to Florida. And so she was a big, big piece of bridging a gap that we needed bridged, moving from Michigan to Florida. And I'm grateful for her. I hope to meet her someday. Haven't had the chance, but I owe her a big fat hug. I think she's a freaking sweetheart, and her, just like my face is to you, her face is so warm and inviting, and like I just see her face, her smile, all that. I'm just like, dude, what a freaking great gal, like I just want to hug her. So I hope to do that one day.
I'm just so pumped that you called her a celebrity because I'm just gonna bust her balls about that so bad. So bad. She Googled her. Okay, well, hold on. This sounds bad. She didn't Google herself. Her daughter Googled her. Mm-hmm. And that's actually what happened. I promise she didn't Google herself that I know of.
I doubt she did.
We've all done it.
Yeah.
But it on Google, it kind of creates those like little things about people after I guess they've been on a TV show or something like that. And it has for her, Amanda Marino, public figure. And I'm constantly calling her a public figure now and constantly being like, I don't know, what would a public figure do here? If she ever complains about like how uncomfortable a hotel room is, I'm like, this is ridiculous. For a public figure, they treat you this way.
Dude, if she ever starts asking for only green M&Ms in the green room or some weird stuff like that, you got to crack that down. That's enough. Enough's enough, right? I know she's had some brushes with Jay-Z and a number of other things back in the day, right? But don't let her get into the green M&Ms. You got to hold her in her place and make sure she knows she's in check. You are far from a dummy, bro. I love what you're doing. I love the topic that you tackle in this podcast because it's so relevant in that so many of us can get lost in the workplace and become just another minion. And I think it's so important to address a lot of the stuff that you're addressing to keep things in place and keep things motivated in the right direction, the goals set in a way that's in line with a vision. And that makes sense to me. I love that. I think probably a lot of what you do is industrial organizational type stuff. It seems, at least. And that was what I was going to go into when I was entering my PsyD. I didn't finish it because my wife at the time, who's now passed away, told me that if I crack down and finish this, that she's not sure she would make it through the marriage. So I opted to, she was just like, I can't do this again. This has been a lot. I was working full time around the clock and going to school full time for my master's degree. And so when I went into my doctorate degree right afterwards, she was just like, I can't do this. This is too much. So I, for the marriage and for my love for her, opted to call it quits and went about my way and don't have any regrets for doing that. Tribe first. And so, happy to be here, brother.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I appreciate it. And actually, when I say I get to be the dummy, I'm actually glad to be a dummy. And I think I've learned to turn some self-deprecation into positives. And I like to call myself names, but I think I do it in this instance. I get to be the dummy because I get to continually learn. And I like to be in a position where I feel like I don't know enough information to move forward. And it really helps me to have these conversations to understand different people's perspectives. I'm starting the PsyD here next month.
And rock and roll, bro. You're gonna be great, man. You got a brain for it, man. You're a blank slate. I love how like what you're talking about is so cool that you just present as this blank slate. And it's like, hey, you got an hour, write on me. I just want to see. I want to read the manuscript. Just write on me. And I think that's the right approach to take.
I think we have to realize too that real recognizes real. And I think that you are a lot. I think that's why we've always followed each other's stuff and have enjoyed each other's content and what we put out. It's because I also certainly appreciate everything that you're putting out. And if it comes down to it, not to be cliche, but it comes down to authenticity. And it's an ability to be yourself on social media, not to put up a front, and kind of just talk about whatever's on your mind and question the status quo. And that's really what I want to do with this whole path, this podcast, with even the doctorate, with everything that I'm going and all the education. It's funny. It's sort of like the more you learn, the more you question the system.
Yes.
And I want to really challenge the current corporate and organizational system that we have, that I think is probably about 80% stuck in past decades, that it is no longer applying appropriately to the current workforce. And there's some serious changes in terms of culture that need to be done in order for us to have a happy, healthy, and productive workforce moving forward. And what I want is that slowly over time, we're able to sort of chip away at this and really reorganize the system in a way that is conducive to an employee-first model, and then move then from there to taking care of whatever the business is doing. If that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense. I love it. It's where we need to be. People first, tribe first. If you take care of your people, you take care of those that serve you as customers, as clients. The rest, I believe, truly will come. I really do. And I think a lot of times we get so focused on the bottom line that we lose that vision, and it corrupts everything in between.
Well, it's funny to me too, because it's been a majority of my focus has been on this idea of compassionate leadership, empathetic leadership, servant leadership, and authentic. And they're sort of all branches and merged together. And all the data supports this idea that if you take care of the people you're working with, and you have it's really about respect ultimately in the end, and empathy, and being willing to listen and have integrity, sort of the common sense bits of being a human. If you're able to do that and not try to play this role of what the stereotypical leader looks like, and be a human, and be who you are and be what you're good at, the data supports how effective that really is. It's just people are afraid because it goes against the grain of what we view business is supposed to look like. So it's really interesting. But anyway, we can talk about this all day. I want to talk about the topic. So I always ask every guest before coming on, what topic do you want to discuss? And you brought up a few different ones, and the loyalty fallacy was the one that just immediately piqued my interest. I didn't bother even asking you, okay, tell me more about that. I just wanted to learn, what is this? What is this topic? Why is this important to you? And why is it something that you want to talk about today?
Yeah. And it goes along with that tribe piece. It goes along with the authenticity piece. It's like we were talking a little bit pre-show about, I don't want to be more than I am. I don't want to be less than I am. I want to be where I fit. That's authentic. That's being me. That's being real.
Right.
And that's hard to find. But once you find that fit, it just it drops into place like a peg in a board, and it just feels good, And I feel like for instance, on LinkedIn, I found that, and it's helped me understand a lot of the organizations I was with before and how hard it is to find that for such a big organization. I mean, a lot of these places, 50 to 100, 200 employees, it's so hard to find that and get everybody on board and do these tribe type visions and these tribe type activities and these team building activities and stuff. But it's so important in that if we can serve our clientele, and that in my mind includes your employees, then the rest will come. And it's something that I've never found. And if I'm being very frank, well, I don't know. Most people probably, if they read some of my stuff on LinkedIn, they probably know that I'm just kind of there. Here it is. This is what I think. I don't know. And so more times than I can count, I've been in organizations that when I've spoke up about things that I thought could be better, I shortly after that was weeded out. And it was genuinely spoken from a heart of loyalty, a heart of bettering the vision, bettering the product, et cetera. And so that kind of plays into the loyalty fallacy for me, at least. Tell me if I'm not making any sense, but.
Well, just to ask you a question. So what you're saying, or at least what I'm hearing you say, is that you were within organizations, you felt so committed to the betterment of the organization that you would find areas that they can improve, question them or bring them up to leadership, and then shortly afterwards they would essentially say like, hey, we're running the show here, not you, buddy, get the hell out of here.
Right. What are you trying to do? It was always looked at as an attack more than a compliment. Okay. And that's what I meant it to be. I wanted it to be like, wow, I think maybe if we start doing this on the side, maybe this would serve the community better, and it would serve our bottom line because it would bring clients to our facility, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of times it was always looked at as we're not doing it good enough, or it was taken as attack. And that could have been how I presented it. I don't know. That's something I look at too. I'm not certainly the right one all the time. I do look at, me and my wife get in a fight or something. I mean, I'm going to be the first to be like, did I broach that the right way? Should I said that differently? Should I, maybe I could have done me a little better. That's the first thing I'm going to look at. But in a lot of those situations, it was genuine concern for the direction of the organization. I was trying to be a compliment. And so, and weeded out, and that was hurtful.
I can imagine that being hurtful. I could also imagine it being something that potentially makes you not want to speak up in the future, and sort of just almost forces you to conform and just fall in line and not question anything and just say, like, I'm not bringing it up again because I want this job. And then it also makes you feel like, what's the point of being loyal or trying to help organizations?
Thank you. You were speaking my mind, dude. That's so well put. And that's exactly where I'm at. That's exactly what I was thinking. And it got to the point where I remember early on in my career when I was more gung-ho. I don't know. I'm gung-ho in a different way now, but then it was gung-ho more the political side, and I was trying to do it the right way and act right and say the right things and all that. And it got to the point where it was just exaggerated. Anytime I would share anything with organizations, it'd be like, so, Mr. Cohen, well, what I'm trying to say is, and I was just so delicate about how I picked, and I was just, it like grated on me, which is which was very helpful for me to find me, right? Because I realized, you know what, I'm just Brian. I live out loud. I'm authentic. If you don't fucking like it, then don't follow me. Right. Yeah. I'm good with that. I'm not running for office. I'm not looking for your vote. I just want to share my thoughts. If you're on board, if it triggers some thought in you to better your life, then yay, that's what I'm after. Right. If I'm your hero, great. If I'm not, that's cool too. I just want to better your life. So whatever happens with whatever I put out there, that's what I want to see. Right. And so that was, I take that good from it. A lot of what happened in the past in those sort of situations helped me kind of evolve into who I've become today. And that's a smile on my face. That's a good thing. It's a process, right?
Do you think that's a necessary part of kind of the human professional life cycle of where we, from what I've seen at least, and maybe it's not everybody's story, but you go through this process of where you try to get into the workforce, you start trying to behave a certain way that you feel like you're supposed to, and then over time you realize it just doesn't feel good. I always say it feels icky to try to pretend to be something you're not, and eventually, if you're one of those types of people who challenge yourself and are always looking to grow, you eventually make a decision of like, no, I want to just be myself. And you start to learn to become your authentic self in business. And it's actually when you start to become successful in life is when you start just speaking your truth and being yourself and doing it in a more intelligent way and not being abrasive. And you sort of learn to balance both worlds of being a professional, that you're not trying to act in this role as a professional though,
right,
but also being yourself at the same time.
Yeah. It's funny. Yes, I think it's part of the process. Yes, I think it's a very valuable, needed, beneficial part of the process. And I think if you embrace it, good things come. I think if you ignore it or resist it, I think you'll probably end up in the same place you've always been. That's insanity, right? Doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results. That's probably where you'll end up. I chose, after some interactions with some folks that I call mentors, I was able to embrace a lot of the development that had happened that I hadn't actually recognized early on. And so I got to a place probably about 5 years ago or so where I was kind of doing a collective inventory of where I'd been, where I'd come to, and like, what do I do with all this stuff? And that's what was just like, you know what, man, I'm done. I just want to be me. And it's one of those, I cursed earlier. It's almost like a thing. I got to get it out of my system.
You're more than welcome to. I don't care at all.
I know. It's weird. I know you don't care, but it's weird. It's like, if I can just get it out there, it almost relaxes me a little bit. Cause it's like, yeah, here I am. Okay, let's talk. Let's have a real conversation. You don't have to be political around me. I'm not going to be political around. We're just going to be people right now. We're just going to have fun with it. Let's share our thoughts. Both of us could be wrong, but we're having a great conversation. And that's what this is all about, like having conversations. So, I like that.
Yeah, me too. I want to just say hello real quick. There's a couple people in the chat here. And by the way, everybody who's listening in live on LinkedIn, you're more than welcome to chime in, ask questions. I got my guy Reb saying hello, Blake. I'm going to throw you in there too, Brian. Hi, Brian. And then Sebastian says, I do not like you. I love you. You are a brother I can trust and lean on without judgment. You are the best, Brian, I know. So there.
I love Sebastian.
Yeah.
He's amazing. Been on his podcast. He's got a whole string. He's got a whole thing going on. Like he's got he's got like a franchise of podcasts, but he does an amazing job. And we talked about some really cool topics over the years, and glad to have him in my tribe. Yeah.
Well, very cool. So let's break down the loyalty fallacy a little bit more. So I understand your experience with it, your personal experience with it. Here's how I related to it when I first heard it, and tell me if I'm right or wrong. We talked a bit about it before we started, is that there sort of goes two ways. So one, loyalty has been used as a weapon against me before, of where I think it's a natural human response. When someone challenges your loyalty, you want to then prove yourself more, and it kind of sends you into a tailspin. Where that once I've questioned status quo, sort of like how you have in the past, that I'm being told in not so many words that you're disloyal. And it makes me question everything of like, I thought I was being loyal. Am I not loyal? And you start to sort of question your own self. If you go against the grain at all, you're not a loyal person to this organization or relationship or family or whatever it may be. Then the other side of it is and how I originally took it was the loyalty fallacy, is this idea that loyalty matters above all else. And that means that I can stay and be stuck in a toxic situation because it's more important to be loyal than to look out for numero uno.
Yeah. So the balance, right? I mean, that you just described gaslighting at its best, in a situation like that. And so it's like you're trying to do the right thing, but you're being told you're doing the wrong thing, and it's super confusing. And I do think tribe comes first. I do think values are above that, right? So you guide your tribe with the values that you have, and so that keeps you out of that realm of being loyal to a fault, right?
Mm.
There are lines drawn, there are boundaries, there are things I will and won't do, and you quickly can find with organizations. In South Florida, it was just easier because it's like a treatment center on every corner almost, and it's kind of
Mhm.
the mecca of treatment. And so I had a lot of experience down there with a lot of different organizations bouncing around. I hated that part of my time there. I really wanted to sit tight with someone, but it just kind of happened the way it happened. And so
Yeah.
that appeared as though I was disloyal, but in reality, I was trying to do the right thing and find my best fit. And
Mhm.
and when you do that, oftentimes you run across organizations that are about the bottom line, which is very important. But because there's so much about the bottom line, they lose that vision of what exactly are we doing here? What is our mission? Like, who
Right.
are we serving, right? And everything just kind of gets it drops into this gray area, and it's just this conundrum of uh, chaos that everyone's trying to understand. And because of that, it weeds down into the employee realm, into the staff, and they get confused. They're kind of, you can feel it in the room. You can feel it when you're in the facility. It's like everyone's wondering, like, what are we here for? Like, wow, we just had 14 admissions yesterday. Does anyone care about us? Like, this is
Yeah.
humanly impossible to do, you know?
Right.
And as clinical director for a number of those facilities, it's like I was the first to speak up, and I was looked at as find a way, you know?
Yeah.
And my first thought was like, that's not good client care. Like, we need to slow the admission so we can take best care of folks so they don't land and get squirrely. They're going to feel it from the staff. They're going to feel it from the space, right? So that all that legacy, all that loyalty stuff just spreads across the board. It's an energy almost, and it's felt by all. And so it's
Yeah.
so important to keep that in in wraps and manage it well. And when you don't, you have a lot of this, rather
Yeah.
than this. This is what we're after, right? We want the
Yeah.
little ones, right? And so that's what I was always trying to do, but it's tough. It's
It
tough.
is tough. And I found myself taking a few deep breaths while you were talking because I've been there working in treatment programs, and I've had these conversations with the clinical directors and with owners.
Yeah.
And it's, man, that there is that one, there's a line I'll never forget that I heard. It's like, hey, do you like having your job? This is job
Mm,
security, having this many admissions coming in. So be happy that there's this many admissions. You'll figure out a way. And it's like, okay, but every therapist here is at max capacity with their caseload.
right.
Everyone here is burnt out. They're all breaking down. What are we doing here? This doesn't
Right.
make any
Right.
sense. Are we really trying to help people, or are we just trying to load up as many people as we can so you guys, not everybody else, so you guys can make as much money as possible?
Right.
Like,
Right.
why? I know why most people get into the field, and I'm very much in line with it of why I got into this field. It's to be able to be of service and to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you realize that sometimes the ownership isn't in line with that same belief, which I get the pressures of ownership as
Yeah.
well. Like, they have to
Goes
keep
both
the doors
ways.
on, they got to pay the salaries, there's a lot of pressure on them as well. And I'm
Sure.
sure they want to help as well, but then, having that financial cushion is a very nice for them. So it sort of motivates them to let's just build up as much money as we can. I get it. But at the same time, we have to find that balance. And this is where I'm constantly preaching employee first, team first. Don't
Mm-hmm.
be patient first. This
Yeah.
patient-centered idea that everybody says, no, I want you to work yourself to the bone for the patient, doesn't make sense. It should be, no, I want you to work yourself to the bone for the rest of the team and support each other
Yes.
so that you guys can be functioning at your 100% capacity, and thus support the patients to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
five
backwards.
fingers. It's like the five finger Coach K, Duke basketball, five
Yeah.
finger concept. That's what he does. and he's all about making sure these fingers, let me get in the camera here. Where am I at? Making sure these fingers are in the form of a fist, right? Because that's going to give our best bang for our buck. If you're punching something with open fingers, you're going to probably injure yourself and be very ineffective. So getting the team here is most effective, and so that's something that I always took with me when I'm trying to lead a team. Very difficult to do sometimes because my values and my vision for what team looked like sometimes conflicted with the bottom line. And it wasn't that I was trying to take from that bottom line. I just understood if I could get to this point here, your bottom line is going to grow. But you got to let me get here. And a lot of times organizations weren't willing to let me do that. So, and that takes time. And on top of that, it's like, lots of admissions, that's one thing, but there's a lot that goes into that. It's not just numbers. It's, hey, wow, we're taking a lot of very highly acute individuals. We're not a facility that is prepared or geared toward managing this population.
Right.
You're creating more trauma for the other clients that are not in those diagnoses to bring these diagnoses in because you just want numbers, right? And so that's beyond bottom line. That's become that to me, that gets to a point where it's counter therapeutic, because now not only are you not taking care of that one person, now you not taking care of that one person is seen by the census, the milieu, and they're all being effective at that. So now we're negatively affecting all their progress. That's not good.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where also I think sometimes people who aren't involved in the day-to-day treating of the clients, and we can get off this treatment topic right after, but the idea they're seeing, okay, I have 14 admissions coming in. They're not thinking past that number of 14 admissions equals this much. It's kind of more of numbers based view of it. They're not recognizing what clinical is saying is like, no, these are 14 complex, unique individuals coming into the program that we need to now treat, figure out how to treat and work with and be effective with. That's what we're worried about. We're not worried about the number of people because they're not going through some cattle call kind of programming curriculum. They need to be treated. And that is very complex and diverse and difficult to do. And this puts everybody in a position to not be able to essentially do their job effectively.
Yeah. And, as it relates to loyalty fallacy, when you run an organization like that, it does affect the loyalty, the bottom line loyalty of the staff, the team, the tribe that you're trying to create, So you can only have so many, Bole, Panera Bread lunches to mend the team. This is not, just by the way, staff lunches are not super glue. It's not going to make everything okay because you tossed them a bread bowl, right?
All right. So pizza party doesn't do it for you?
No.
Is that what I'm getting?
It's like, yeah, I mean, like, man, you got to have a presence. There's got to be more behind that, and so a lot of organizations, that was involved with did a lot of that. And I love that. I think that's a great start, but it's like, that's not all. And so you're running these guys ragged, and eventually they feel like herded cattle themselves, and the loyalty begins to be affected because they're wondering, do these guys care enough about me as much as I care about them and the clients? And then it becomes, I've seen it gravitate from like, yeah, I'm really all in for this company. Then they have this feeling of herded cattle, and then it evolves to, you know what, I really care about the clients, not so much about the company. Well, that comes across to the clients too, right? Whether we mean to or not. And that affects the treatment process. And so I think all that stuff has to be taken in consideration. It's got to be protected. It's got to be valued. It's got to be guided in the right direction through a lot of team building stuff, a lot of, like when I was clinical director, I did a lot of on the floor stuff. I was always in everybody's offices. They probably hated me for it, but I always wanted to know what was going on with them. How's your family? How's your mom? How's your dad? How's your husband? Like I was always trying to get in there and keep a pulse of like where everybody was at in real time, so that I could plan for the ebbs and flows. You
sort of keep reading my mind as I'm thinking things. The idea of taking care of your employees, and they try to do these grand gestures like a pizza party, or which I don't know if we're calling that a grand gesture or not, but
right.
Sort of this here. But we bought you lunch. What you were just talking about is that it's actually a lot more simple and a lot more human than that to actually take care of your employees. It's just sitting down going, hey, you doing all right? What's going on at home? Everything all right? Yeah. Is there anything I can help you with here? What are your thoughts on this? It's been really busy recently. You handling it okay? Sometimes that's just enough humanity just to reinvigorate a person and say, okay, I'm cared about. I can do this. I'm going to keep going. I'm supported. And they're going to want to keep fighting the good fight. There's no question every job, it's not going to be some like rainbow land where you're walking around and everything's happy and easy every single day. And it's exactly the right amount of workload. It's never going to be that. Right, but it's when you have a team where you feel bonded and you feel there's that level of trust amongst the team, you feel supported, you're able to get through anything. And that's what makes a person love a workplace. It's the people coming together and having this bond and getting through difficult times together. That is what actually creates real loyalty, as opposed to the false loyalty, the fallacy. That people have the expectations of loyalty that a lot of employers have of people coming in. You're going to be loyal. You're going to do what I say, as opposed to let's get through this together.
Yeah. And it's almost like, you can only throw so much money at folks before they realize that you don't even know them. Money is nice. That certainly fixes problems immediately, bills, whatever. Sometimes with a $5, I don't know, Starbucks card or something, that's almost an insult to a certain extent, but
right.
That's another topic in itself. But you can only throw so much.
A regift.
Right.
The $5 start, you're like, I gave this to you.
It's like, you can't get a coffee at Starbucks for $5. Jesus.
Yeah, right.
But it's like, you can only throw so much money at them before you get to the Christmas party and you go up and hug the owner or whatever, and they don't even know your name.
Right.
And you realize this was backed by nothing but a bank account. They don't care about me. They don't even know my name. They don't know my family. They don't even know the position that I serve in this company. That's weird. So meeting people where they're at and having real conversations like what you're talking about is so important. The funny thing is, when I was serving as clinical director in a number of facilities, like I would go up and I'd meet these people, on a daily basis, just like having a conversation with them. And it's like, I would always go to their office because as a clinical director, if you're like, hey, can you come up, Blake, can you come up to my office? I want to have a conversation. It's like, oh my God, am I getting fired? So I never did that. I try not to do that. I tried to go to them, meet in their space. And these guys, they did such amazing things with their office. It was such a warming, counselor kind of. I was like, dude, you're so much better at this than I am. Like, this office is awesome, right? I love doing that and seeing their space and getting the vibe of their energy and stuff. And, but it was like, oftentimes when I would say, how are you doing? How's the family, et cetera? Hey, what can I do to take something off your plate today? I almost never got an offer to do that. Because it was always looked at as, if I do this, my boss is going to see me as weak and I can't handle the caseload.
Right.
And I hated that. I really hated that. And I always spoke like, hey, look, you're good. You're in a safe place. I'm fine. I'm happy I'll do your notes for you. Like, just give me the notes. I'll put them in for you. Like, whatever you need, just let me know what you need. Right. And it was so hard to get past. That was one of the hardest things I couldn't get past with a lot of them. It was so frustrating.
And I think what you're talking about is exactly what I was saying before, is that we need to change the culture of workplace and of organizations where people are not only offering assistance, but accepting assistance without fear. Yes. And that comes down to that safety. And that is not something that you can flip a switch one day and just bring in a good leader and all of a sudden they're like, you know what, I feel good now. That is something that's created and built over time, is that psychological safety enough to say, hey, I would love if you could help me out right now. I'm really struggling. I need you to take these cases off of me, or handle some of this, or write my notes for me, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Most people don't feel safe enough to ask for that help. Agreed. And that's where it comes down to like a cultural overhaul that has to occur. And patience needs to be brought in as well, where we're going to take time to do this, and we're going to truly build a foundation and a house of safety, as opposed to one that's just built on sand, and it's going to crumble as soon as you ask for help.
Yeah, totally agree.
I want to bring up with loyalty that loyalty also goes both ways in terms of there's a bit of a loyalty fallacy that can be brought up too, in terms of the employers being loyal, feeling like they must be loyal to their employees at the same time, especially with ones that maybe aren't producing or who are toxic to the environment, who are bringing other people down, but they feel like, I want to give this person a chance. I want to keep them around. I'm not that type of boss. I don't want to do this. I don't want to fire. What can I do to build them up? And they sort of tried everything, and they just keep the person around because they feel like they've got to be loyal to their team, who maybe have been through a couple of hard times with them. There is that other side of loyalty where I think you do get the nice employers that are afraid to fire because they're afraid of the message it sends out to other people, despite the person they need to fire being toxic to the entire organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the issue with that is that when you do that, you're indirectly reinforcing all the behaviors that you don't like to continue within the system that you're trying to promote. So it's like, if I got an issue with this person's performance and I don't fire them or reprimand them or put them on some kind of performance improvement plan or whatever it is, if I don't do anything, then it's saying that what they're doing is okay. And certainly now you put yourself in a position, I mean, if we're brass tacks, if this happens with someone else and you fire them, you're at maybe, liability for a legal suit because you're not being consistent, right? So now you're picking and choosing. And so I think it's important to, again, values, knowing that where your values are at and like, what are you loyal to? Who is your tribe? Who is in your tribe? Certainly if you are loyal to your organization and it's got a great, healthy culture, that's ideal. And you've got your tribe and you're creating your tribe. And, I was always very honest with those that were on staff with me. It's like, guys, this is our vision. This is our mission. This is what we do, right? This is what we're promoting here. And if at any point that you're outside of that, then we're going to have a conversation. And if you can't get back in line with the vision or mission, then maybe this is not the best fit for you. That doesn't mean the world's going to blow up and your life is going to end. It means you're going to put me down as a reference and I'm going to help you in that transition. I'm going to bridge the gap. I'm going to get you another position where you fit better. This is not the devil God kind of scenario. I don't hate you. I'm just saying, hey, your time here is over. Right. Yeah, it's not a good fit anymore. So let's move on, Sure. And I wanted to bring up something, Blake. I want to hear your thoughts on this. This whole concept of stay in your lane. I don't know how I feel about that, because I think sometimes when we stay in our lane, it says, I do my job and my job only. And I think it kind of sometimes hinders that tribe concept of hey, we're in this together. We work together for the end goal. And I was never, as a clinical director, it's I'll do groups, I'll do individual, I'll do notes, I'll do whatever you need. I'll pick up afterwards. I'll clean the place. I'll close down. I'll pay for the pizza myself. Whatever. I was just whatever's going to bridge the gap, let's get it done. And sometimes I got the vibe that it's oh, you're staying in your lane and that's not your responsibility. Well, that's hindering the process in my mind. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I was just thinking about it. Because it kind of goes into that loyalty thing in a way. When you don't, whatever you do with that can affect how the rest of the team feels about the organization and working together and that loyalty concept. And are we moving as one in the right direction, et cetera? I don't know.
I think it's a way more complex question than can be answered on the surface, because I think staying in your lane is important in a lot of situations. I think there's a difference, though, of when your input is needed in another area, or you can bring value to something else, to another area, or a different perspective, and it's welcomed. I think that's a beautiful situation where you can kind of get out of your lane for a little bit and say, hey, I noticed with the admissions process, this, and this is going on. It might be helpful if you tried this, if you're open to that, just offering some feedback.
Yeah.
I think there's so many things. I think it depends on the situation.
There's a lot to unpack.
Depends on the situation, the followers, depends on the organization, the job titles, and there's so many pieces of that. Where I do think, though, there is sort of a beauty to staying in your lane where everybody's in their own lane, serving their individual purpose, but being supportive of each other through it, allowing the strengths to shine.
Yes,
And
that's what I
everybody's
like.
strengths working together and creating cohesiveness. So it's the same thing like loyalty, right? There's good sides, there's a light side and a dark side to it.
Yeah.
And I think I think when it's used as an excuse is probably when I've been the most annoyed with I'm just staying in my lane.
It.
I'm not,
yes,
it's not my
that's
job.
It.
That's always bothered me. And it's like, hey, dude, I'm just asking you to take out the trash. Like I need some help. Like, please just take out the trash. It's not my job. It's like, that's where you're not being a team player. That's where it's always bothered me. I do my job and get out of here.
Yeah, that was what was ringing in my head when I made the comment that I did. But keeping in mind that when you're looking for this loyalty concept, when you're looking to be cohesive and work as one, it requires a little bit of stepping outside that lane at times, taking out the trash, etc. But those extreme examples are the ones that I get frustrated with. It's like, well, hey, that's not my responsibility. Staying in my lane over here. It's like, bro, it's the trash. We're all family here. Like, get it done.
I think the hardest part about that too is that you can't really punish somebody for staying in their lane either. And that's probably the most frustrating
it's so crazy. What do you do with it? That's why I asked. I was like, so crazy.
I don't know how you feel about this. Do you remember like the whole quiet quitting phase that we went through a couple of years ago of everybody talked about quiet quitting, and I fucking hated it. I hated that term because you're basically saying that people suck for just doing their 8 hours at work and then getting out of their job. I hated that piece. I think it's totally fine. We need those people who are just the worker bees, essentially, who don't have to come to work and their work is everything in their life, and then they'll do anything for the team. We need people also who are just going to come in, do their job, and go home. And that would be called quiet quitting. You're basically trying to get fired by not going up and beyond and just sticking with your job description. It's like, no, they're just doing their job. Like, don't put them down and don't put a name to that. I feel like nowadays we have to name everything.
Yeah, no, I love that you just said that because you're such an IO brain, bro. Like you're gonna be great. Like this doctorate, I'm so freaking proud of you, man. Like it fits you perfect. It really does. And you pick this all apart, and you're recognizing all these different personalities that exist. And it brings me to the big five. It's like there's this personality assessment. Like every organization, I believe, should be almost required to do one. It's like, find out who your team members are, where they sit on the bus, and are they in the right seat? I think that's really a great place to start to figure out like what team do we have in place here? I don't think Shaq would have been a good point guard. Do you know what I mean? Right. So it's like, where are we at with this? Right. Let's find out where everybody fits on the team and what seat they need to be seated in. And let's make sure folks are being optimized so that we can meet that vision, that goal, that mission that we have. So important.
Agreed completely. Like we do need to stay in our lane. It's an important piece.
We do. Generally, we do. I was just picking that.
I could just say like, thanks for that question, but that is a tough one to answer because it's so dependent on the scenario.
Your next podcast.
Yeah. Is staying in your lane good? I don't know.
I love it.
So Reb asked a question, and actually I wanted to ask you this too, and we're sort of wrapping up here. So this is a two-parter, and I want to bring up what Reb just asked in the chat. But I've noticed you've used the word tribe even before we went live. Tribe seems to be a really it's a word you've used a number of times to describe family, to describe our workplace, to describe the interactions we have with other people. What is it about that word that is so important to you?
Tribe to me encapsulates more than family. It's more than bloodline. It's in line with Ohana, a Polynesian term for family that is more than family. It's a community. It's a neighborhood. It's a city. It's one. It's a vibe. It's an energy. It's a value system,
Okay.
a mutual value system. It's more than just family. And so tribe encapsulates a lot of that for me. And you're in my tribe. I consider Amanda my tribe. Like, this is more than just family, just bloodline. It's a community of people that like-minded.
Okay. Okay. Um, I think you're always okay with it. You can see my people pleasing comes out when I want to challenge a concept.
Yeah, you do it, man. Do it.
Well, I worry about that, and I think it's a perfect transition with this idea of the loyalty fallacy. I actually appreciate the perspective when people talk about workplace being a tribe or a family. I appreciate that, and I think there is a sense of closeness that people have at work. We do spend most of our hours with those people, and sometimes we're closer to them than we are with our own families.
Yeah.
At the same time, when it comes time or if it's turned toxic on you, or it's time to leave, or another opportunities come up, I'm abandoning my tribe. I'm abandoning my family. And so that's where it becomes a negative of calling a workplace a tribe or calling it a family. Adds a layer of guilt and adds this idea of like, now I'm being disloyal, and that's bad, and I'm bad for making that decision. Yeah. So it's a tough. I definitely understand. Like, I know my recovery tribe. For me, I'm in personal recovery. I have my recovery tribe. I've got my family. But even then, sometimes with family, certain things go toxic, and it's like, I can't turn my back on this person because they're part of my family or my tribe. I'm stuck with them. And that's not always necessarily true. So I guess that's the dichotomy of the word and the idea of the concept of using tribe as a way to describe our families or workplaces.
Yeah. It's got a big fat gray area, and it can be dangerous. I absolutely agree with you. I don't think you're wrong at all. And that's something that I had to manage in there were certain organizations I was with that kind of just took it on. And there were certain that I had to tread lightly because they were more corporate minded, maybe. And that's my word. And it just didn't kind of fit with the more grounded family concept. And so bringing tribe into that corporate setting was confusing for some. And so I had to be careful with that. And I don't think I did it well all the time, honestly. But something to learn from, for sure. I think you're right. I think you've got to teach. There's a process of teaching. It's hard to come in hard and fast with tribe. You got to teach that concept, and you got to help folks understand that when a tribe member's down, it's not disloyalty. It's a chance for you to serve, a chance for you to step up and be that support like you would for family or anybody else. So that's a process, and it takes time, and some are open to it and some aren't. And that needs to be taken in consideration as well. That doesn't mean you fire them. It just means, okay, what do we do? This is a valuable member of our tribe, whether they believe in the tribe concept or not. What do we do with that? How do we bring that together so we all stay one?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think I think it all comes down to communication in the end.
Yeah.
It's how we want to use the word tribe, and how we want to build the workplace up, and how we explain what we mean when we say tribe or family here at work. That it doesn't require you, just like with a family, you're allowed to remove yourself from a situation if it's toxic. And if it's not working for you, I want you to speak up, and I want you to challenge it. You don't need to have a false sense of loyalty to it just because we're describing it as a family or a tribe. And that's what Reb sort of brought up. I think the idea of we are a tribe is wrong and a myth, because an employee works for a salary. If a manager wants to share value, mission, and be a tribe, they have to share profit also, which
he's not wrong.
No, I mean, there's truth to that too. And I think it's a way of looking at it. I guess if I look at my parents as the leader of the tribe, I also don't expect my dad to put like 1/5 of his salary into my bank account every 2 weeks. So there's a truth to that, and a not truth that there's always a leader of the tribe that typically it's just the way that the world works. We're in a hierarchical state, right? So like there's going to be people who are benefiting from certain things more, and this and that. So I think really what it comes down to is just making sure that everybody's taken care of in the way that they need to be taken care of. And it's not always financial.
Yeah, defining that. And my whole concept with tribe has always been I want folks to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves, generally speaking, you know? And I love creating that kind of environment and it being real and it being driven and it being a concept that gets you up in the morning and it's like, I like going to work. I like being around these people. These people care about me. That we have like minds. We have the same vision. That was kind of that's what I'm always trying to create around me because I think there's a lot of value in that if it's real, and certainly inauthentic is not my goal by any means. But yeah, he's got some good points there, and you got to be careful. I think that defining that is so important. I think you nailed it. I love that you just said, this is my people pleasing coming out of me. That's so vulnerable and so honest and so real. And we all have that. And that in and of itself is tribe.
Can you see Sebastian's comment? He actually just said the exact words you just said. I love it how you openly said your people pleasing comes out, a brave and great way to defeat the need to people please. So you guys are
That's why I love
in line there. Yeah, you guys are definitely in line there. No, I appreciate that. I think it's I have to recognize what's going on, why I'm hesitating to bring up a certain my own belief.
Call it out.
Man, well, listen, I am part of your loyal following, and I really appreciate you coming on here and breaking this down and having this conversation with me. I think we touched on a lot of really important topics.
Yeah.
And man, if no one listens to this, it doesn't matter. I had a great conversation with you.
I did too, man. I appreciate your input. And I appreciate you sharing. I appreciate you being real. Appreciate you taking the time and having me on, man.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. And everybody who is on here or listening, if you want to listen back, it does stay alive. It does stay live on the LinkedIn page forever, I believe. And then it's going to be on YouTube soon. It'll also be in about 2 weeks or so. It'll be a podcast as well. You can listen to wherever you listen to your podcast. If anybody thinks that they've got a guest that they think will be a great person on this show, please let me know. I'm always booking about a month out. And we've got some good ones lined up, but I do need people coming up soon. And I'm excited to start talking and learning from a lot more people. So thank you, everybody who's listening. Brian, thank you again for coming on. If you want to just hang on here for a second while I end it. And goodbye, everyone.